Morning.
Morning, Bill. How are things this morning?
Oh, okay.
Well, it's better than bad.
Yeah, they're they're good.
Good. Well, Adam will not be with us today. His assistant had a family emergency, and so he's unavailable. Is it quiet across the river there?
Quiet, yes. No power outages today.
Well, that's good. But did you have power outages over there during that rain?
We had a brief one. Yes. Uh, it lasted 2 minutes. Uh, Eversource got to us and said tree limbs, but at that short a time, I figure they were working on something and because they couldn't have been notified, gotten out there and fixed it in 2 minutes. So
Not EverSource.
not every source. So, um, but we've had two in the past month. We've had two much more significant outages with trees coming down across 154
Huh.
up, up toward Tylerville from us.
Uh-huh. Huh.
And if you walk down the street, as I do regularly, and look up, it's worrisome.
Yeah. That funny. They have done a lot of almost massive clearing along our roads over here.
Yes, yes. Um, part of it looks like all that clearing has allowed room for trees to fall.
Yeah. It does seem that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Morning, Bill.
Good
Morning,
morning,
Bill.
Bill. How are you guys?
Good.
We're okay.
Good.
You shouldn't speak for David, you know.
I
Shouldn't.
actually I'm good today. I overslept, so I am more rested.
No, that's surprising when it happens, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. I since my son passed, I've not slept well. So
Oh, yeah. Wow.
uh, it's been kind of an interesting time. Sleeping has never been an issue for me, and so this has been a new thing. But oversleeping this morning was actually, I think, a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think there was some demand there that got met. So,
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. But um, did Joanne say anything about not being here? I
Um,
always forget.
I don't remember that.
Nope, there she
But it
is.
wouldn't be unusual.
I know.
to not remember.
Well,
No,
that.
no, no. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, she's coming. There she
Yeah,
is.
sorry, I tried to join 2 minutes ago and it didn't work. I don't know
No.
why.
Yeah, 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 yeah. My Zoom decided to update itself this morning.
Oh
So,
yeah, I
Yeah,
got that yesterday. Yeah, yeah, there must be a new.
a new something.
there's a new something, and they never tell you when it's coming. And when you're kind of rushing at the last minute, it says, "Oh no, this
Yeah,
will only take a few minutes."
right. Yeah, they're good at that.
Yes. Yeah.
They even do some of it, and you don't even know it's happened. As I think,
Right.
I I every once in a while I will start up, and there's something completely new on the desktop. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
wait a minute, where'd that come from?
Or it's a whole new configuration of something
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
really getting used
Yeah.
to. You're
Yeah.
like, what happened? Setting up,
Yeah.
because I set up Zoom. Yeah, I find that. It's like, where did those things go? Yeah.
Well, they
Yeah.
just want to keep us on our toes.
Yeah,
Right.
well, somebody's got to get paid to do something. I don't know. It's, yeah,
I
kind of like
don't
all
know.
those Google designs.
Yeah.
Like, there's a
Yeah.
whole art department of folks just
Yeah.
making up ways to write the word Google connected to a particular theme of the day.
Yeah, when PCs were a new thing, you were pretty much in control. You had to know how to use the command line and update the operating system yourself and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Of course, the PC had a portable one. It was the size of an oversized
Right.
portable sewing machine.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It weighed about 20 pounds or more, and then we thought it was great, and had a little
Yeah.
screen about that's
Yeah.
Never my manual being that thick.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I have a friend coming tomorrow who was a computer science major at Dartmouth back in the 80s. And he said, yeah, the computers were in the basement and they were the size of the entire wall.
Yeah.
Right.
It was like the huge kind of main whatever. Yeah.
Well, Adam will not be with us today. His assistant unfortunately had a family emergency, and so
He's there.
he has to work. So
Got it. Yeah.
we will proceed with the three lovely people who are here.
And we're recording.
And we are recording.
I noticed that when I came on.
Better than yesterday morning's class. It took me half the class before I realized I wasn't recording.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy this morning.
Yeah.
Questions, thoughts, concerns, reports?
Too much Christmas activity.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had maybe similar effect, but just lingering cold and just stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you have any wisdom, when your practice kind of lapse, how to get back on the tracks. But
I don't know that I have any wisdom,
Yeah.
maybe at all.
we think otherwise, but
I think one of the things is not to put too much pressure on yourself and to remember the 1 minute
Yeah.
suggestion, that you'd say, okay, I haven't got much time today, but I will do 1 minute of practice.
Hmm.
And do a minute. We can all find a minute. And if you do a minute, sometimes you'll do a little more, even if it's a busy day. It just gives you a way to keep doing a little bit until you reach the point where you can let your practice time expand back to whatever is more normal for you. That's one thought.
Yeah, I do that. I try to at least do 6. Or focus on one particular, like, okay, if we did move in 5 last time, just kind of remind yourself. I don't want to lose what we learned. I
Yeah,
feel like
right.
that's what happens either when we're sick or when we just get too busy. I mean, I just sat down and looked at my notes and realized there's no notes on my notes, right? Like, so I print out the lesson and I read them and I highlight, and it's like, I guess I didn't read them even, but I did do some practice, but it was more like, okay, just don't forget that.
Mhm.
and that's good too. Yeah. So there's a couple of thoughts, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's creating the mental space
Yeah,
as
Yep.
much as the actual time, because there is a lot of time, even when you're busy, between things, but getting your mind in the time
Yeah.
to be that way.
And keeping the need for the practice somewhere in um, the scramble of your day.
Yeah. You'd like to think it was at the top.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's not.
Some days, some
And
days it's not.
I think having a time of day too is really key for me. I mean, if I don't do it in the morning, and no matter how much I promise myself,
Mhm.
I'll do it in the afternoon. It's rare. Not on a weekend, I might have time on a Sunday afternoon or something, or maybe right before dinner. But for the most part, if I don't do it in the morning, I don't have that mental space, and I can't do it too earlier because I'm not awake.
Yeah.
Well,
So
this
there's
that
this little kind of,
I,
there's a window, and you have to take the window.
yeah. And there is something to be said about the habit of doing it.
Yeah.
Um, just saying that this is important and I'm going to make time, even if it's only 1 minute on a busy day. Um, at this point, I do some Tai Chi. Uh, sure, things get in the way, and you don't make it 100% of the time, but it is. If you don't practice, you don't progress.
well, yeah, you aren't doing it.
Yeah.
You're not doing
If you
it,
if you
right?
don't do it, you aren't doing it.
Not
Right.
helping your body any,
Right.
Yep.
or your
So
mind,
it
spirit. Yeah.
it's really and we all know that's not that you don't know that. It's just making it be important enough that you always include it to the best of your ability. So, any wrapping questions? Okay. Well,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, the wrapping from back to front seems easier than the other way.
from front to back. Okay. Uh,
Um,
why do you think that is?
um, I think it has a more defined starting point for me.
Oh,
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there's something vague for me, at least about the front to back. So,
So
hmm.
my immediate thought is that speaks to 5 and 6 because we're trying to develop that awareness of the uh,
Right.
center line in front and eventually the central channel in the middle of the body. So um, yeah, and that is new. It's interesting. we don't begin to really work on being aware of the central channel until the God's practice. I mean, we know it's there. We talk about
Mm.
it from time to time, but there are not very many other practices where we really focus on that. And partially that's because you have to develop the rest of the system before you can really get into the central channel. Um, so yeah, it's a little harder to feel and be aware of the center front and the center back. We have the we have that nice lumpy spine in back defines it for us. um, so it makes it a little easier. Absolutely. Well, we're going to continue into wrapping a little more today. So, when it comes to wrapping the legs, you have to go all the way from the feet up to the buttocks. And you need something to begin to get a sense of releasing the fascia. And the truth is that this is really very, very tricky. If you take a piece of saran wrap, it's clearly tighter than a rubber band. But this is the big trick in releasing the fascia. Pulling the fascia so you stretch it one way and pulling it so you stretch it the other way is good. And that's something that Rolfers and myofascial people do all the time. But that's not really what we're after, because what they do is stretch in one direction and stretch in the other.
Mm.
So the fascia wraps the entire body, but besides wrapping it, you want to have a constant pulling and stretching happening inside the fascia the entire time. Because there is a certain point when, if that stretching and coming back is even, you get energy running right down the line between the one end of the fascia and the other. Now, if you're going to wrap the legs, how do you get the fascia to go in and out without the sense of it going 100% in or out in either direction? That's not going to do it. What you have to have is that the fascia has to come in and go back without stopping. So this is, in one sense, like a circle. At the top of the circle just continues down to the bottom and continues up. Not that it goes up and freezes and then goes down and freezes and stops at each end of that. If you're really making a circle, where is the beginning and where is the end of the circle? You can't say. In a circle, this is the beginning, or that's the beginning, because it's arbitrary. A circle is continuing. It never really ends and it never really begins. It's just one continual motion. And that's kind of what you're looking for in getting the fascia in your legs to wrap. You don't want it to start and stop, but that's coming into itself, and it's going out of itself without a stop. And that promotes the qi circulating through the body to the maximum extent, what the Chinese call qigong. So buttocks, hips, thighs, lower legs, and feet. So when you're doing this, you're twisting in and then out. It isn't as though you have to have it go from one side to that side. You could do that, but really what you were looking for is to have it go from one side and continue around to the other. And continue around so that it keeps going around like in a circle. And when you're going the opposite direction, go all the way to the side and come back again. So as this continuous motion, and it's going to wrap your entire leg, you have to have what you do on the front of the leg continue to the back of the leg. And what you start on the back of the leg continues on the front of the leg. And this will seriously increase the amount of qi moving in your system. I should say that for most people, this is particularly difficult in the buttocks. And the biggest reason is that we don't really think that much about our buttocks, except perhaps as a symbol of beauty in one way or another. But due to the fact that we sit on it, we don't really think about the fact that the buttocks are really what are driving your thighs. You really don't think of it as an active part of the body. We think of it more as a passive part of the body, or part of the body that can be ignored. So with the buttocks, you're going to wrap from the back to the front and from the front to the back, all the way around. But it goes in those directions. One of the things to remember, it's interesting suggestion that to remember that when we begin everything we do, that we have a slight bend, a little tucking here, which actually helps us begin to access a feeling of the fascia. And if at the beginning of trying to do this, one of the things that can help is if you just simply do a little tilting movement from side to side. You can feel it pull the fascia, and that will help you begin to connect to feeling the fascia in the buttocks and the thighs in particular. So you want to have this wrapping going on the whole time that you are practicing. You could just wrap the fascia in the legs one way and then the other by just having it go to the other way around, and that's okay. But if you could have no breaks, so it comes in and goes out. So what I'm saying here is one way to do this, of course, would be to wrap inward and then wrap outward. But what we suggest gives you the maximum energy flow is when you have both of those happening at the same time. So one is wrapping in and one is wrapping out, and it continues in and out. So it's not just boom, boom. It's that continual motion. The circles continue. So at this point, we're going to begin to look at not just the legs and the buttocks, but getting the fascia of the whole body going together.
Can I stop you for a minute, David?
Sure.
I have a question. I understand this in the legs. I do not understand this in the buttocks. I understand moving the fascia in the buttocks, but because the buttocks now is part of the trunk, our trunk, as opposed to our leg.
Yeah.
Because yeah. And I thought when we were wrapping before, I think I had asked a question about this, that particularly when we were talking about the back, we weren't talking about it, just kind of wrapping all around. So anyway, correct me, teach me,
Um,
clarify things.
so yes, the movement in the buttocks is similar to what we're doing in the body, in the
Okay.
torso.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas the legs um,
Okay.
have the potential anyway for a different movement, and they're happening simultaneously.
Okay. Yeah. That I understand. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So um, when we talked before about the movement from the sacrum to the perineum, which obviously would seem to include the buttocks, we were
Yeah.
thinking about the connections to the torso and the upper body. Now we're talking about how the hips and the buttocks connect to the legs.
Mhm.
So you, the movement hasn't changed. We're just being aware that there is a connection in both directions at that point.
Mhm.
Is
Yep.
that
I think so.
okay?
We'll keep thinking about this. I'll ask again if I need to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to get the fascia in the whole body going together, well, we have from the spine to the front and the front to the spine. So now the legs, so then the legs in and then adding the legs. And now that you have all of that, what about the neck and the head? So once you get all of them going at once, that's your whole body. And you really don't have anything else to add in. So we're going to do a fairly long practice here of wrapping this morning. So, and eventually we're going to just be doing movement 6. So talking about being aware of your central channel, you're going to get a chance to be aware of that as you're wrapping, hopefully. So whenever you are ready, please stand up. And just be aware of your structure and your breathing. And for a moment, have your mind inside your body, extended inside your body, and try to be aware of everything in your legs. And then be aware of everything in your torso. And be aware of everything in your arms. And now be aware of everything in your spine and neck, back and front. from your nose all the way down the center line of your body and back again. And can you actually be aware of all of this all at once? And you may not be. So let's just say we would start from the assumption that you can't be aware of everything in your body at once. So what you're going to do as you stand is first, you're going to just be aware of going from your tailbone to the crown of your head and wrapping forward to the center line of your body and wrapping back to your spine and back and the back of your neck and head. And even this is very tricky because you're going to be moving the fascia in your face. Your fascia is going to be going forward towards your center line, and it's going to be going backwards towards the back of your head. So as you start doing movement 6 now, what will help you is recognizing how much can your mind be aware of your body. Just begin doing movement 6. So we've gone into where do you turn over from the yin to the yang in other movements. And maybe that's too much for you. If that's too much, as you're making the movements, just focus on the base of your neck to the top of your head and wrap back to your ears. And then from your ears to the front of the center line of your head, clear down to the bottom of your throat. And then from the throat and the front of your face all the way back to C7 in the back of your neck. As your hands come down, wrap from the back to the front. And as your hands rise up, wrap from the front to the back. At the same time that you're doing your neck and your head, wrap your arms. outside to the center of your arms, center of your arms backward. Wrap first to the yin surfaces of your arms, and then wrap backwards to the yang surfaces of your arms. And then wrap in both directions at the same time until it just becomes like one wall of fascia. And that wall of fascia, everything moves, just how it moves. But do this along with the neck and the head. So you now have the fascia wrapping your body in your arms, in your head, and in your neck. And now from your tailbone to the large vertebra at the base of your neck, wrap from your spine to the center line of your torso. And from the center of your torso backwards to your spine. From the base of your neck down to the tip of your tailbone. Wrap from there to the center of your pelvis and the perineum between your legs. And then wrap it backwards from the throat notch around your body to your tailbone. And now pay particular attention that when you're getting to your sacrum, that you do not force it. The whole time you are doing this, try to do it only in such a way that the sacrum is loose and comfortable. The last thing you want to do is start twisting the sacrum. And now have the back to the front and the front to the back occur simultaneously, completing the wrapping of the torso. And now starting from the tailbone, wrap the buttocks completely around the pubic region down to the perineum. Then wrap the pubic area and perineum back to the bottom of the buttocks. Thereby stabilizing the middle of the body, your body's center of gravity. And now see if you can have them both happen simultaneously. This wrapping will ensure that your body does not dissipate the qi and not unnecessarily do what the Chinese call leaking qi. Now wrap your thighs from the back to the center line in the front of your thighs. And from the center line of your thighs back to the center line of the back of your legs. Try to be aware of the energy that's moving into your thighs, is pulsing and energizing and coordinating with the energy in your torso. And now have each go in the opposite direction, front to back, back to front, simultaneously crossing each other. Fascia binding the leg. Then continue from the back of your knee all the way down to the bottom of your feet. And since you've had more experience wrapping and tightening the fascia around your torso, try and wrap and tighten it a little bit more strongly in the knees and the feet. And now add your feet. Wrapping along the top of your feet to your toes. And wrap on the bottom of your foot, from your toes to your heel. This action of wrapping is commonly called sealing the qi of the body. In today's world, many people feel very negatively affected by other people's energy. Some people penetrating and driving them crazy. Two of the major techniques in Qigong, which form a type of self-protection force for this, are sealing the pores and this type of whole body wrapping. And it is a useful thing for the way people find their personal space being invaded, and through that feeling themselves compromised in life. So in the next few movements of doing movement 6, you want everything in your body wrapped and sealed. Now the next time that your hands come down to the bottom, just stop and stand. And for a little bit of time, just feel what it's like for your energy to be strongly contained within your body, without it dissipating outward. It will feel like being stable, so outside forces can't destabilize your chi and your mind. Understand that as you're doing this, this month or however many months it takes you to put this in piece by piece, eventually as you start separating and combining more pieces, all this will arrive when you can do it all at once, and it will be fairly effortless. So pause and relax.
Mm,
Yes.
yeah. There's something very helpful and very deep about kind of being guided in that way so that it takes me out of my head and puts me in my body,
Yep.
which is really, no, and also comforting to know it's on the tape. That it's recorded, so I can do this again. But that being said, I think that the helpfulness of it is that once I could begin to feel it, I didn't need to keep thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important, obviously, because I can also overthink it to the point where then I just kind of goes away.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we probably all can do that. I mean, I really felt the chi. I really felt the energy in many ways in my body, in my saliva, like really kind of kicking in quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's still places that I need to go, okay. I'm still a little confused when you said about around the knees, because I know we're trying to protect the knees. But I also know that there's, fascia kind of top and bottom there that we're trying to really work.
Yeah, it's interesting that because unlike the twisting, where we don't think of the whole knee, with the wrapping we do,
Okay. All right.
because eventually the wrapping is going, this way.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so it's not in any way twisting or stressing the knee negatively.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Bill or Bill?
I understand about starting at the back or starting at the front and moving the other way. But when I try to incorporate that into the form while the form is going, it it's difficult. Although the continual wrapping around in both directions is sketchy right now. Uh, when I do feel it, it feels much better than trying to go back front and having those stop and start points.
Uh-huh. Good.
If I don't know whether I explained myself there. Yeah.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
Good.
And certainly when we relaxed and sat down, I felt as good as I've felt in quite a while.
Ah. Well, that's good. It um, as I said, this is very tricky. This is not. None of this is easy, I know, but I
Hmm.
think rapping is one of the more difficult um, pieces of this practice, of all of our practices. Um, and so it takes it takes some practice, as we were talking about
Yep.
at the beginning,
Yeah. Yeah.
in order to arrive at a point where it is comfortable and continuous, and um, you're not having to think too much, which we all know is negative. So, anything for you, Mr. Bynum?
Well, yeah, obviously it needs plenty of practice, as you've stated. The For me, I think when I think it helped relaxing, particularly around the buttocks, to be focusing on the wrapping, and obviously, if your muscles are tensed up, nothing's happening very much other than going through the motion. So,
Right.
but that I think it did, thinking about it that way, help with the buttocks and the leg relaxing and just being there. And as we were doing that, I try to do of course, the bow, at the
Hmm.
same time. That seemed to really help the wrapping, the motion of the wrapping, at, at the times in which I think is getting to be more often than not that I get that the bow in the back doing something besides just mechanically moving. So
Yeah, I think it can be. Um, I think it can be really helpful. I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
yeah, so it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like.
So, if you only have a little bit of time, just try wrapping one area.
Mm.
um, but
Yeah. Mm.
but I think that it's with the wrapping. I think it's really important to try to have a bit of practice and keep it going. It's true of all of it, but um, particularly now that we've really incorporated the whole body. Um, I don't know about you. I found the the head and neck particularly difficult.
Yes. God.
Um, but when you can get all of it going together, it is a really marvelous feeling, and it leaves the body um, feeling really good. So,
The individually, I didn't find the neck and face difficult.
hmm
Putting it together, not thinking too much about it, putting it together, um, particularly while doing number 6, it just felt like, yeah, we're talking about very different sizes of aspects of our body, right?
mm,
So where the neck is I think with the arms too. I mean, any of that, right? So just that kind of like, oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, not wanting to think too much about that in that practice, but noticing that,
Yep.
needing to, yeah, mess with
Coordinating
that.
all those pieces. Yep. Absolutely.
Right.
I think another thing to be aware of too in this is going back to what um, Bill said. Don't let the condensing that you need to have happen in 5 and 6 create tension that prevents the wrapping.
Yeah. Mm.
I think sometimes we get a sense of we've got to tighten down, and that of course just gets in the way. So it's, yeah, you're having to mix a number of different things here and get them to all work together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm.
Good.
Very rich.
Well, that'll give you something to work on this week. Or weeks.
Or weeks. Yes, that's good though. That's good.
We have at least a 1 week break coming up, so you'll have extra time.
Extra time.
Well, hopefully. Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Good
you,
class.
David.
Yep.
Yeah.
Have a good week. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
See you next week. What?
Next week is the beginning of a new session. I'll just throw it out. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Have a good week.
Yep. Yep. You too.
Hello. Sorry, I was just making a note about sending you money on Saturday because that's my day to do those things.
Okay.
I did not do my homework.
Okay.
Which is connected to this class. They are all connected, but anyway, I think that what I was pondering at the last session was twisting and kind of connecting that to yin and yang and kind of where things are happening at what time during I'm just kind of reworking the first paragraph on that. I've been kind of just to kind of get things in, get things back in, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think what the homework was, go over it several times and, make notes. And I did do, I did do the flow a few times at the beginning of, or last week. And then I just kind of, got, crazy busy. So I do, when I do get crazy busy, I feel like I can at least do some of God's, which is what I did. So I didn't get back to that, but that's still a needing. So I realize some of that's refresher and some of that is getting to understand this more deeply so then having more questions. Some combination of that, right?
Oh yeah. And I do think, Joanne, that you're a special issue.
Why am I a special issue, David?
Because of what you do and because of what's going on at the moment.
Yes. What's going on at the moment?
I have to say I appreciated the head of the UN calling for a ceasefire. But will Israel listen to that?
No, last night I heard they were beginning to flood the tunnels.
Oh, geez.
I mean, what do you say? How do you, I don't, let's just drown them, like I just don't, I just saw something this morning. I checked email and there's an emergency meeting in Chicago where Jesse Jackson, a lot of the organizations including Jewish Voice for Peace and Not in Our Name, which are, both Jewish-led organizations that are anti-war and have been, in support of Palestinian rights as part of their founding. Larger organizations like Fellowship of Reconciliation, but it just seems like we're up against this, resoluteness by Netanyahu and support by Biden. I mean, when the United States is the country that objects, in the Security Council to a ceasefire, and everyone else wants it, everyone else sees the horror of the murders.
Yeah.
And it's, and the genocide, and you can't, how could you call it anything else at this point?
I don't think you can, and I'm just appalled. I didn't expect this. I don't think any of us did.
Didn't expect it this badly. On the other hand, when I look at Netanyahu, and he's literally running for his life because, he needs this war for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
He needs it to stay in power. He needs it to deflect from his own inadequacies and problems. I have not done it. I just told Rick this last night. I've not had time to look at this, but I joined in a group. There's a military industrial complex, kind of a network that I had been part of their summit last year and did some work around conversion, but just had to drop it for other reasons. But they had a check-in meeting 2 days ago. So I felt like it would be a good place to pick up and share some information about Gaza, and it was. But one of the things that the facilitators said is that they just appeared an article in the Washington Post, some leak about October 7th, to the point where it made for some stock market changes. In other words, people knew it was coming, and so then you invest more in the weapons manufacturers and in other kinds of things. So I need to. That's like all he knew, and it just come out. But it's like the horror that this was that Israel, not surprisingly, was able to get the plans, but ignored them for what they say are a number of reasons. But at the same time, they not only ignored them, they removed a lot of the soldiers from the wall to bring them to the West Bank, because the Palestinians were rising up against the increased increased settlements and the increased settler violence. I mean, the whole thing is just like a horrible movie. That just, it seems like what a horrible plan, and so they're so set on this, and to some degree even set it in motion, because Netanyahu on the sly was allowing Qatar to fund Hamas and fund their weapons, not just humanitarian. I mean, the whole thing is just a plan to get rid of people. And it's a train that is hard to figure out how to stop. And I think the one good thing I take, I don't know, this hope is not the right thing, but I find the media has increasingly found Palestinian voices to listen to, including human rights activists in this country whose brother and father and nephews were part of that group of Palestinian men that they rounded up saying that they were Hamas when they weren't.
Yeah.
There are people who stayed in the north because they felt like there was no security in going south. I mean, it's all just this horrible smoke and mirror, PR kind of, feel like they're just doing this to play to Israelis and Americans about, see, we found all these bad guys. Like, no, you didn't.
Yeah. It's really awful.
The propaganda is horrible. Yeah.
Well, that got us clear away from Tai Chi.
Yes and no. I mean, I think that as you were talking in the last class there, about kind of wrapping and kind of, protecting and all of that. I mean, I
Oh,
think to
yeah.
some degree, there's this balance that I'm in the middle of it for that and for other work around anti-racism stuff, where there's this, this is where I think Tai Chi and Yin and Yang and all of these concepts come in helpfully, that there's this kind of onslaught that you do need to protect yourself from, right? Like it's kind of the horrors of the propaganda. I think each of us have to understand kind of how much we can take in without being paralyzed by all that. On the other hand, I can't shut it all off. I know some people can or do, but for my work, I can't.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot change something if you don't know it.
Yeah.
And so I need to listen to that. So it is a matter of how we wrap ourselves and protect ourselves in a way that helps us continue to function.
Yep.
To do this at the same time, kind of like letting things in, being able to kind of sort that out. But there have been times where it just overwhelms you, finding a way to kind of get rid of that, whether the overwhelming might be something happening out there, or it might be accusations that you believe are false against you within kind of, organizational drama,
Yeah.
that say, okay, no, I need to pay attention to this issue, particularly say the issue of racism here. But everything that is said is not true. There's a lot of generalizations. There's a very good article that appeared about a year ago written by a Black man who's now head of Working Families Party, about how we did that kind of progressive organizations have just gotten into this kind of, everybody's personal problems have become the organization's fault and all kinds of things like that. So we're kind of in the middle of a bit of that right now.
Yeah.
And so how we sort it out. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as my mother would always say.
Right. She's right.
She's right. And so I do think that this practice helps us at least remember that we're capable of doing both, that we have to do both, kind of the protecting, but not, it's not an iron shield here, right? It's not a keep the world out.
No, we have to acknowledge what's happening.
Right.
And deal with it as best.
And deal with it and sort it. But I think that the practice strengthens us for the ability to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely.
I mean, part of this thing that we're going through in one organization, they keep using the word practice. What are your intentional default practices, or what are your default practices, and what are your intentional practices? Right. So, and I think I need to go back and read. I mean, obviously, I know what intentional practices mean, and it's a word I'm very drawn to, both because of our practice, but also in work I do around nonviolence. I talk about it being, we need to practice nonviolence in order to practice nonviolence. We can't do this without some practice, without some thinking about this, without some fortifying ourselves. And it's why we do role plays, and we understand more of the concepts, and we practice it literally sometimes.
Yep.
So anyway, it's it all comes together at times. That's right. Yeah. That's when it's like, okay, this is hard, but my life is not siloed. It's busy.
No.
But it's not like, oh, that's my separate work for War Researchers League, and that's my separate work for the Community, Land Trust, or that's my separate work for Tai Chi. It is holistic in one need, but so I struggle with making enough time for this, but I also realize that kind of like you have to make enough time to eat too, drink water.
Yeah. I'll do all those things. It's important.
It's important.
Well, hang in there.
I will, David. I will. And I will, I'll get back to, I will be able to pay. I'm pretty sure I'm trying to get my work done so by the 21st I get a good 10, 11 days. I mean, a lot of that, some of that's Christmas and other kind of a flurry of things, but some of it is just downtime.
Yeah.
So,
I hope you
needing
get
that
some.
pretty desperately.
I'm gonna say,
Last year
I'm sure you do.
last year I got COVID on Christmas, so my downtime,
Oh,
2 out of the last 3 Christmas breaks, I've been sick. So the flu 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, and then last year COVID. But
ah,
even though it is up and around, it's been in every one of my households. My daughter has it, Seamus had it. Rosina's stepdad's had it, so Rosina's at Patrick's to stay away. Luckily, I've not seen any of them, very, very recently, and I was boosted. Rick and I got boosted in November, so
good.
hopefully that'll keep us. Yeah, I had to have a mammogram yesterday. I walked into the clinic with my mask on, so back to the mask.
Yep. It's unfortunately that time.
Right, it always happens in December anyway, so let's just get with the program. And I didn't go into the bank. I went through the car thing, which I almost never do, but I just
Yeah.
stay away from people to some degree. It's terrible, but it's true.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
It is that, remembering the season of the winter, right? So it's,
Yep.
kind of hunker down a little bit more.
So we'll see you next week.
I'll be here, hopefully.
Thank you.
That's the plan. Thank you, David.
Take
All right.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.